Hi guys, Jerry Berg here, and this is the kickoff video, aside from the introduction, of the series of the Poor Reenactor's Guide to Swords, or whatever title I decide to put to it. And I thought it only fitting that the first style of sword for the Poor Sword Guide would be the infamous India sword. There's actually 3 different styles. I only own one of the 3 currently, and it's probably the most common. And that is this one here. So I'm going to label the India sword styles as this one, the cavalry India sword. The next one has almost a horse head up here on the grip. I'm going to call that the horse head sword. And then the third one, which honestly is kind of the rarest, I'm going to call it the Tulwar India sword because it has kind of that standard round decorated looking grip. So my first experience with India swords was back in college. I started a Civil War club, which was mostly reenacting, and I realized I needed an officer for this group, and of course it's going to be me. So I posted online and I said, hey, does anyone have any officer stuff? And someone said, oh yeah, definitely, here, I'm just going to send it to you, just make sure to give it to someone else in exchange when you're done with it. And I was like, wow, that's so nice of them. They sent me the whole outfit, pants, coats, and then the sword and the leathers, and I was like, thank you, shout out to that guy, whoever you were, I appreciate it. And he sent me an India sword as an officer's sword. Obviously, you know, he gave it to me for free, so it's not going to be the highest quality. And it wasn't. It really wasn't. So that was my first experience. Then over the years on places like Craigslist and eBay, I've seen these swords for immensely cheap. Sometimes they're kind of a shorter, almost like a dagger version, and sometimes they're the full length. And they've been really cheap, honestly. I've gotten some as low as $10 before. The scabbards on the various varieties also have a bit of variety to them. I'll go into those later. But for now, I want to go over some of the details of this sword. So firstly, it's not a good sword. It is not a good sword. Let's start at the bottom here. This finial here, I just want to point out, it does have a lot of rust on it. It's because it got separated, which happens easily. It is very easy to fall off, so if you get one of these, glue it on or something, I don't know. But it's very rusty. I haven't had a chance to clean it, probably because I don't really use these too much anymore. This is also a good opportunity to show you just how thin that metal is, and then I'm pretty sure this is some kind of like aluminum alloy something. It's not iron, it's not steel, or if it is steel, it's very low quality. Also, another example of here's one that's clean, and here's one that's not. Another example that they rust very easily. If you can get a good look at that. Very rusty. So, the scabbard itself, it's very nice. It looks kind of leathery. It's not leather, but it looks leather. I don't know if you can get a good zoom in of that. On the back, it actually has the stitch down the back. Very nice, good call. However, I had one of these before where the thing was falling off. In fact, I think it was the one the Civil War guy gave me. And it is not leather. It's actually more akin to duct tape than anything else. It does have a couple cool things about it. One is these little hooks here. I think they normally come with a little chain, which you would then attach to your belt. I don't know if you can't really see down there, but you'd attach to your belt. Not for a very good holder, but it's there. I took mine off because it's janky. And then also, if we want to go into the hilt here, you can also see the same duct tape materials around the handle. There's wire, and in fact it's a very tightly braided wire. I don't know how well you can see it on there. So I mean, it's cool, it looks good, but it's not very well made. This particular, the other weird thing about these swords is that even though they're the same style of India sword, they vary a lot. For example, this one's probably the highest quality India sword that I've come across. The guard here is actually made of pretty thick metal. I've seen them before where I could just kind of bend it. Also, the thumb guard up here is decently thick and strong. And it just looks clean. I don't know why. But I believe that these are trying to replicate some sort of cavalry sword, kind of like the ones on the wall behind me. It doesn't do a very good job. Here, this is a model 1860 original light cavalry saber. I believe it's an original or very good replica. And let me just hold it up against the wall so you can see. The India sword has a much more defined curve to it than the original cavalry sword here. And then also the thumb guard, I have no idea where they got that, but I have not seen that on an original sword in that particular kind of doodle style. I've seen it much bigger. I've seen it of different types of metal, but not exactly like this. So it leads me to believe that they're just kind of going off what looks cool. So let me pull the sword out, show you why it's called an India sword. First of all, this is, like I said, one of the highest quality India swords I've made. The blade is fairly thick, has a unsharpened back, and then honestly, I don't know if you'd call this sharp or dull. I mean, it's sharper than a dull sword, but duller than a sharp sword, and the point is actually pretty sharp as well. Down the blade, see if you can see it in the reflection, there's this nice little acid etching, kind of a cutesy little Arabic or Indian design. I'm not familiar with it. And see if I can find where. This particular one might not have it. Oh, there it is. Somewhere on these swords, and this one says right here, made in India. Kind of see that. Oh, that's funny. They all have it somewhere. I've had one that's down here. It's all somewhere else. It goes back to the same, where they're the same style. They're made differently. Now, I believe that these swords are sold in India to tourists because swords are cool. It's true, they are. So I'm not too. The blade is. I'm pretty sure it is steel. I have had an India sword before where it had a chrome, like it almost came off like paper. On the sword itself, which was pretty nasty. This one does not have that, but I was pretty shocked when I first saw it. And as you will see with almost all of the swords that I'm going to cover in this series, there's a nut on the bottom of the grip. And if I were to be able to untwist this, which I'm not, you would be able to see, you know what? I'm going to put you on hold for a second. Pliers. I'm going to take this off and just show you what it looks like on the inside. Okay, I actually haven't taken this sword apart before, but I've taken these apart. So firstly, you'll take the nut off and you can already see that it's got a screw rat tail in there. You can take the cover off. And you can already see just how nasty it is under that metal, how poorly made, if you will. Now, of course, that's not what makes this sword poorly made, it's just the overall kind of speed of it. The guard comes off with the handle, and inside the handle you can see it is made out of wood. Very light, I'm not sure what wood it's made of. I would guess not a hardwood. And then the tang of the sword itself. Kind of gross, kind of nasty, and then oh so quickly hammered together or cut out. It's definitely hammered of some kind. It's not cut out, but it's like ding 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 done. And then just a teeny little bit of the threading on the end there. Makes for a sword that is solid enough to be sold for 20 bucks. And if you want something that looks cool, not of a particular historical event to hang on your side, or maybe something that looks neat to hang on the wall, this is the sword for you. I reenact a few eras. This would be poorly fitting, but at least you'd have to take a closer glance to notice the difference in an 1800s event. Like I said, I've worn that one to some of my early Civil War events as an officer, and didn't get a second glance at it. I believe that era doesn't really have a lot of people who are knowledgeable on swords. There are some, don't get me wrong, but there are a lot who are unfamiliar with the details of swordsmanship because it's an era of guns, which makes, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. But if I were to, I had brought these to a Renaissance era event before, under the knowledge that they did not fit in very well, and I used them as a talking point about the Polish sabla. Now clearly these are not sablas, not at all, not for the 16 or 1500s. But it was a jumping point to discuss the difference between a curved sword and a straight sword. That's how I used them at an era that didn't fit very well. I mean, of course, a lot of people were very interested in that. So I think that's all I've got to talk about the indie sword. I don't really want to give this thing any more time in the spotlight than it deserves, and I think I've already done that. But until next time, I'll catch you later, and I think I'll have a much more interesting and more promising affordable sword in the future. Catch you then.